Hi Creep Freaks, Ren here. So excited to have you and wanted to take a moment to thank you for subscribing. And welcome to all my new subscribers as well. Your support means the world to me and I can't wait to continue creating horror stories that you'll love. So sit back, turn up the volume, and enjoy the ride. Let's get to tonight's story. The Beast of the Harrow. Written in red by Ren Bryant. In the heart of the city, there was a black stone building known as the Harrow. It was a place of mystery and dread, with twisted towers and gargoyles that seemed to stare down at the people below with a malevolent gaze. Deep within the bowels of the Harrow, there was a man known only as the Surgeon. The city whispered about the Surgeon. They said he was a deranged individual who delighted in the pain and suffering of others. That he was a scientist who went mad and built his fortress of hell. They said he had long since lost his sanity and now lived only to inflict his sadistic experiments upon the unfortunate who found themselves within his grasp. If you go to the Harrow, they said, you will suffer the Surgeon's wrath and you will never be seen again. One such soul was a young woman named Emily. She had come to the Harrow in search of her missing sister, who had disappeared after becoming involved with the dangerous cult that was said to operate from within the building. Her sister said she wanted to do something that mattered with her life, and that's why she ran away. Emily hadn't seen her sister for years, but now Emily's mom and dad had died, and Emily needed her sister to come back. She didn't want to be all alone in the city. As Emily made her way through the dark and winding corridors of the Harrow, she could feel the oppressive weight of the building bearing down upon her. She could hear the distant screams of tortured souls and the sounds of dripping water echoing off the cold stone walls. The air was damp and clammy and gave her skin a sticky residue. The things that were said about the Harrow, the whispers from the people of the city, appeared to be true. Emily didn't want to be here in this dank, hellish abyss of a building, but she wasn't going to leave until she freed her sister. No matter what she faced in the Harrow, she would stand firm. So as her heart rattled in her ribcage with each short breath, she continued forward. But as the shadows deepened, she began to wonder if she made a terrible mistake in coming here. Finally, Emily came to a locked door. She could hear a faint sound coming from within, like the muffled cries of someone in pain. She tried the handle, but it was locked tight. Suddenly, the door swung open, and she stumbled inside. The room was dimly lit, and the air was thick with the stench of blood. In the center of the room was a table, upon which lay a young woman, her body bending in directions it shouldn't. Standing over her was the Surgeon, his eyes gleaming with a manic fervor. "Ah, Miss Emily," he said, his voice dripping with madness. "I've been expecting you." Emily backed away. "What have you done with my sister?" she demanded. The Surgeon smiled, his yellow teeth fluorescent against his pale white face. "Oh, your sister's here, Miss Emily, but she's not quite herself anymore." He gestured to a nearby door. "Would you like to see for yourself?" Emily hesitated for a moment, then slowly made her way to the door. She pushed it open, and what she saw inside made her stomach tie in knots. The room was filled with cages, and inside each one was a person, their eyes flashing terror and pain and melancholy. Some were missing limbs, others had grotesque mutations that made them almost unrecognizable. The room smelled of rotted cheese. In the middle was her sister, or what was left of her sister anyways. Her skin was a mess of lacerations and pus. Her face was rearranged, as if someone took out bits of skin and replaced them with something cancerous and green. Her body lay limp on the ground. Emily didn't see her chest moving. Emily fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this?" The surgeon stepped closer with a smile of sickening glee. "Because it brings me pleasure, Miss Emily. The pain, the suffering, it's all so beautiful." Emily looked up at the surgeon, and her eyes filled with rage. "You're a monster!" she spat. There was nothing inside the Harrow but a demented man with sharp things and cages and a desire to turn the beautiful into the disgusting. She wondered what her sister was promised to come to the Harrow. She wouldn't have come here on her own free will, not knowing what awaited her. The surgeon laughed, a sound that echoed off the walls like the cackling of a demon. "Oh, my dear Miss Emily," he said, "you have no idea." And with that, he lunged forward, his scalpel flashing in the overhead light. Emily scrambled backwards, trying to avoid the surgeon's deadly blade. Her heart spazzed in her chest and her body shook in fear. With her back against the wall, she felt for the door handle, needing to get away as the surgeon jabbed her direction with his sharp instrument. Her hands moved up and down as she came to what felt like a pipe, or something large, round, and metallic on the table. Her body amped with adrenaline, Emily swung the object as hard as she could at the surgeon in an attempt to fend him off and create distance between them. Her shaky arm missed the target and hit a nearby control panel that operated the cages in the room. Suddenly, she heard a noise from behind her. She turned to see one of the cages open, and a figure was slowly emerging from the inside. It was a woman. Her body was mangled flesh that hung off her like drapery. She stumbled towards the surgeon, her eyes fixed on him with a fierce determination. The surgeon sneered. "Ah, my dear subject," he said, "I see you finally have woken up." The woman pounced the surgeon, grabbing a hold of his arm. He tried to pull away, but she held him tight, her grip like iron. Emily watched in horror as the woman began to change. Her body twisted and contorted, her skin stretching and tearing. And then, with a sickening crack, her bones snapped and reformed, becoming something new. The woman was now a monster, a twisted amalgamation of flesh and bone that seemed to writhe and pulse with a life of its own. The woman's face resembled something primal, with a protruding jaw and a razor-teeth snarl. The monster let out a high-pitched wolf cry that rattled the room. The surgeon screamed as the creature attacked him. Bones snapped, flesh ripped. The surgeon let out a final cry of agony that turned into silence as the creature ripped through his neck, releasing a torrent of blood. As the creature stood over the mutilated remains of the surgeon, its eyes fixed on Emily. But Emily wasn't paralyzed with fear anymore. She was angry. Angry at the surgeon for what he did to her sister, to the others, to the creature. She approached the creature and spoke softly to it. "I'm going to get you out of here." She looked around the room, her eyes scanning each cage, looking for the keys. After a few moments, she found them hanging on a hook near the door. She rushed to grab them and quickly made her way to the cages. One by one, Emily unlocked the cages, releasing the broken and battered prisoners. They stumbled out, their eyes wide with fear and confusion. Emily did her best to help them, as she knew they were too damaged to leave the cage on their own. She turned to the creature, which was now standing beside her. "Can you help me?" she asked. The creature nodded, and together they worked to free the prisoners. Emily opened her sister's cage and bent down to touch her cold body. Her sister didn't deserve this. She was a good person who got wrapped up in something bad. Emily wiped away her tears. "I'm sorry," she told her sister, touching her alien-like face before getting up to continue freeing the others. As they worked, Emily could feel a sense of hope rising within her. She had come for her sister, but now was leaving with a family. She knew that they couldn't save everyone, that there were ones like her sister that were already dead or too badly carved up to move, but they could save most. After what felt like hours, they finally freed the last prisoner. Emily turned to the creature and smiled. "Thank you," she said. The creature looked back at her, its eyes shining with a strange intelligence. "We're not so different," it said. Emily nodded. "I know," she replied. "Will you be okay?" The creature nodded. "I will be," it said. "Thank you for freeing me." Emily smiled and turned to leave. As she walked away, she could hear the creature's footsteps following her. When she turned to look back, it was gone. In the days and weeks that followed, Emily worked tirelessly to expose the realities of the Harrow and the surgeon's crimes. She helped the survivors find new homes and new lives. They got together at holidays and enjoyed each other's company, and she never forgot about the creature that had saved her. Emily never saw the creature again, but occasionally she'd hear a cry when she was hiking the wilderness, and she knew that it was out there, somewhere, watching over her. And when she closed her eyes for the final time, she knew that she had done something good in this world, something that mattered.